Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Advanced Bass Fishing, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to check out today's video. Guys, today we're going to be talking about setting the hook and some things that you should never do when you're setting the hook. There's a lot of different reasons why people lose bass, and much of it is how you set the hook. So we're going to go over some different type of hook sets today, talk about the whole gamut of setting the hooks with different type of lures, because you know, every lure requires a different type of hook set, the size of the lure, the hook. So we're going to get into all that in today's video. Also, guys, real quick, just a reminder, if you guys, a lot of people ask me questions about the fishing line I use. If you guys are looking for some really good line, guys, try this Seaguar and Vizex right here. This is what I use 95% of the time for all my fishing, and I have for over a decade now. I'll put my Seaguar and Vizex fluorocarbon line link in the description of this video. Awesome line, guys, small diameter, super strong, abrasion resistant. It's just, I absolutely love this line, and I have for over a decade. So I'll put that in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the video if you guys would like to use that. And also, guys, real quick, anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, just go to my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat Professional Angler, shoot me a private message, and I'll get you guys set up with the details there. So appreciate that. Okay, guys, I'm going to sort of do a little demo here on some different type of hook sets, talk a little bit about that. But first of all, let's talk about hook sets in general and why you don't want to set the hook a certain way or certain style. First of all, the biggest advice I can give you is you do not have to set the hook hard to land bass. It has to do with more about how you reel and pull into the fish rather than setting the hook hard. Because the big, let me explain to you guys a big disadvantage. Let me get a bait here and I'll show you. If you set the hook super hard, and especially if you're setting the hook super hard from a distance, let's say for example you're fishing a jig like this, and that bass has got this jig like right in the soft part of the mouth. On a bass, right here on the upper lip, this is a soft part of their mouth, and a lot of times the fish get hooked right here. If this jig is in the fish's mouth and you set that hook super hard, like it just boom, set the hook super hard, a lot of times if it gets into that fleshy soft part right there, it's gonna tear a hole. And sometimes it'll tear a hole that big if you really set the hook hard, and then that fish jumps in the air and throws your bait. And that's why you lose it, you set the hook too hard. Another situation is, let's say for example, that fish comes up and inhales your whole jig just like this, and it's clamping down super hard on that. If you set the hook super hard from a short distance, a lot of times the force of that hook set will blow that fish's mouth open and pull the jig out, and you don't even get a hook in it. It's just like there's no hook in it because you just blown the fish's mouth open. So that's one aspect of it. So, and it varies on different type of lures, whether it be treble hooks or, you know, slow baits or something like that. So let me demonstrate a little bit what I'm talking about, how you want to set the hook properly and how you don't want to set the hook. And we've talked about this with some before, but this is going to be a really good refresher to a lot of you guys that have never seen it. Now let's talk about two different types of lures. You're going to talk about your treble hook lures, like a crankbait or a topwater, a jerk bait, something like that. And then we'll talk about a single hook lure like a jig, shaky head, Texas rig worm. If you're throwing a crankbait or a bait that's got treble hooks on it, you know, throw it out there, you know, you're reeling like this, you're setting, you know, you're reeling your crankbait. And if you get a strike, if you know one bites on your crankbait, don't set the hook like a live nerve ending. It's like, you know, don't just like jerk back like that as soon as you feel this fish on a crankbait. Couple different things. Number one is you're going to potentially tear that soft part of the mouth, and number two, a lot of times the fish has not fully inhaled that lure when you feel it bite, and a lot of times you'll just pull the fish away from the lure. So the main thing you want to do on a moving bait, like a crankbait or something like that that you're moving through the water column, is you always have to anticipate the strike. And it's like, okay, I'm reeling my crankbait, I'm getting ready for a strike, boom, I feel something. At the time you do that, just take a step back and start reeling fast like that. You don't even really have to set the hook. Just start reeling fast and don't let off the pressure. Keep reeling like that. Get that fish's head coming in your direction until it turns the other way. And here is one tip I'll give you about fighting a fish in relationship to your hook set. If you're reeling and the fish is coming to you, keep reeling. Don't stop. Don't like pull into it and, you know, start pumping it like that. Just keep reeling to try to get that fish going to you as fast as you can. And then if it makes a run and starts moving away from you, that's when you push your free spool or let the drag take it out, and don't try to turn the fish the opposite direction, because it pivots that hook and it'll turn out of there. So in other words, on a treble hook bait, just pull and reel like that. Okay, now on a slow bait, it's a little bit different based upon the diameter of the hook that you're using. If you're fishing a big jig like this, like my Blaukat Throwback jig here, this has got a larger diameter hook in it, so it's going to take a little bit more force to penetrate. But if you're using like a wire, like a shaky head or a Ned rig that's got like a little wire hook, not so much. So if you're using an exposed hook, like on a Ned rig, or maybe even a small diameter hook, like on a shaky head or a drop shot, when you're fishing that, when you get that bite on that particular bait, number one is don't get in a big hurry to set the hook. And number two, it's just the same way that you do with the crankbait. It's like when that fish is moving out with your bait, you know you got a fish on, you're getting ready to set the hook, just start reeling fast. Just pull back and start reeling fast. But when you're reeling, pull back on the rod at the same time, but don't set the hook like that, because that force of that set is what is going to cause you problems. Now, on a heavier bait like this, like a jig or something like this, it's a little bit different, because sometimes you're going to have to put a little bit more force in it, especially when you have a big bulky bait with a larger hook. So if I've got a big bait with a big hook, say I'm fishing a big 12-inch worm with a big 5/0 hook, or a big jig, something like that, when I set the hook, it's going to be a little different. Number one is I'm working that jig like this, I get the bite. And the thing you don't want to do when you set the hook is you don't want to bend down to the fish and give the fish any slack line and set the hook on a slack line. Never set the hook on a slack line. That's when you pop the fish's mouth open, and that's when you'll tear the fish's mouth. So if you're fishing that 20-pound line with the bigger hook, feel the strike, feel the strike, feel the strike, let the fish move with it, and then set the hook on a tight line. Let the line tighten up so you got a tight line, and then set the hook and reel back like that, because you're setting the hook on a tight line, which is a little bit different. You're not setting it on a slack line that pops that jig up, or that worm or whatever out there. Main thing with that is you don't have to set the hook with as much pressure as what you think that you do to set the hook. The key to landing fish on a hook set is to keep the pressure on them. Don't let the pressure off. It's like when the fish jumps, for example, a lot of people, they try to put the rod tip low in the water to keep that fish from jumping. You're not gonna stop that fish from jumping. If you see a fish coming up like it's getting ready to jump and throw your hook, the best thing that you can do, guys, is lift your rod tip high where your line has a direct connection to that lure, and keep that line tight, because they throw a bait when that line's slack or loose. But if you reel tight, when that fish is jumping and you reel as it jumps, you keep a tight connection on that fish, and the fish can't move its head as much. So that's another big mistake people make with hook setting and fighting a fish. But the best thing that I can give you guys on the hook set, we've talked about this before, is don't set the hook in the traditional manner of reeling down on it and jacking them like that. Try to resist that and think about pull and reel, pull and reel. And you have to expect the strike in order to be ready for that. But just practice that, guys. The next time you go fishing, just pull and reel. Pull and reel when you get a bite. You'll notice a huge difference over the course of like a year's time. So anyway, I hope it helps out, guys. We'll talk later.